All right, so we've got one more day kind of built in here before we are, thank you, I'll bring it back to you, before our next quiz. So next class we will have a 2.5 quiz, and you've pretty much practiced the bulk of what you need to practice from that. So 117 was practicing long division, synthetic division. 118 was a 2.5 worksheet. That is most what your quiz looks like. So you definitely want to put eyes on that handout again. I want to say that the question types are even in the same order, although don't quote me on that. But quiz is about the same difficulty as that. And then 119, which was the book assignment, you should have finished up last class. And of course that's some extra practice within that as well. But you should have all of those things done. But if you don't, make sure that you've got them done before the quiz next class. So I wanted to provide you a little bit more practice since we had one more day in our schedule for it. And so I decided what I would do is give you the semester test review. And the thought here is that this would help you out in two ways. So I'm asking you to do questions 33 through 37 on the semester test review. Those are the question types that will be on the section numbers, kind of wrong there. But those are things that you need to know for your 2.5 quiz. Some long division, some synthetic division, finding some factors, writing an equation, given some zeros. So I felt like that is at least relatable practice to this section, and then you would have 5 questions from the semester test review done. Then if you felt like you needed to study for the 2.5 quiz, you've got some class time to do so. If you don't, you could do a chunk of anything else on the semester test review. So kind of like last semester, some of this will be required. It just depends on how much time we set aside for you in class. If I give you a bunch of in-class time before the semester test, then it will be required for your grade. And if I can only give you some time and not enough time, then I can give you some grade based on which ones I assign to you and how much time I give to you. So at the very least, do questions 33, 34, 35, 36, and 37 on the semester test review. And again, if you're having trouble with any of those, that's a red flag that you might have trouble with those question types on the quiz next class. And then it gives you some flexibility. Either use the rest of the time to study for your 2.5 quiz if needed, or work some more of your semester test review so that you don't have to do it later on. So, should be pretty easy day, but again, you definitely want to look back and make sure that you're comfortable with all those question types on 118. So, any questions before I give you some time to do these 5? Okay, so I'm going to set a 15-minute timer, and actually I'll do 20 minutes, and then after 20 minutes I will go over 33, 34, 35, 36, and 37. So if you're having trouble with any of those, you can just follow along with me once you're struggling with it. And this week is an A week, so I will not see you tomorrow. So the next time I see you will be Tuesday, and Tuesday will be the 2.5 quiz. So.
I know I might have asked this yesterday, but what if I finish the test today? I think that'd be better use of time.
So that's not an option.
Okay. Alright.
If you do all of this and you get a good chunk of the test review done and you still have some time at the end of the class, you can see, but that's what advisory is for.
which I'll have the chance to apply, but I don't know when the meetings are.
Hello.
Phase 2, 3rd floor. I'll send them. Need to go to phase 2, 3rd floor. Counselor's office. Okay, just about 3 more minutes, and then I'll go over those 5 questions in case you're struggling with any of them.
Phase 2, 3rd floor.
All right, so I'm going to start off by going over number 33. So even though you guys won't have to turn this into a grade for a few weeks, I do have the solutions and some videos and stuff posted already. So I guess you could check your answers to these 5, but all right, question 33 says, find a 4th degree polynomial with real coefficients that has zeros of -3, 2, and 3i. Okay, so the first piece of information you need to know, just like that practice quiz from worksheet 2.5, first off, if this is a 4th degree, that means it should have 4 zeros, and they only gave you 3 of them. It's the imaginary zeros that always come in conjugate pairs. So if 0 plus 3i is a 0, then 0 minus 3i has to be a 0. And of course, adding 0 doesn't do anything, subtracting 0 doesn't do anything. But that's the first piece. You have to know that one without being told that one. Imaginary zeros always come in conjugate pairs. Then, to change these from zeros to factors, you just need to do x minus each one. And of course, minus a negative, I'm just switching to positive. And now, depending on the directions, you could be finished here, but this one said it wanted you to multiply it together so that you end up with real coefficients. So it doesn't want it written as a product of linear factors, it wants it as a polynomial with real coefficients. So at some point, well, honestly, I think it's really important that you multiply these two together before you multiply them to other stuff, but short of that, you can pretty much do it in any order that you want to. But I'm going to FOIL these two together. And then I'll FOIL these two together. Anytime you multiply something by its conjugate, remember the outer and inners cancel out anyway, but if you don't want to memorize that, then you still should figure it out. And before I continue going here, we need to rewrite this one. This I squared, we need to change that and simplify that. So the one that you need to have memorized is that the square root of -1 is the definition of I. So if I square I, it's how I get I squared. If I square the right side, I've got to square the left side. That's a way you can figure out what I squared is without memorizing it, as long as you have this one memorized. So this is really like -9 times -1, or plus 9. Okay, and now I need to multiply one more time. So again, think of it this way. You've got 3 terms times 2 terms, so in the end you should have 6 terms, so you don't accidentally forget any. But x squared needs to be multiplied by both of those. And x needs to get multiplied to both of those. And the -6 needs to be multiplied to both of those. And then again, I think it makes sense to make sure you have 6 terms. But now just put them in standard descending order. I've got this many x to the 4th, this many x cubes, this many x squareds, this many x's, and this as a constant. So there's the polynomial that has real coefficients. The coefficients are 1, 1, 3, 9, and -54. That would have those as zeros. And the way I know that they would have those as zeros is that this has these as factors. And I know it has those as factors because that's what I multiplied together to come up with those. So. Okay, anything else about 33 before I go on to the next one? Okay, then 34, a polynomial, if the degree is n, that means it has at most n real zeros. Whatever the degree is how many total zeros there are. The reason why it says at most is because some of those zeros might be real zeros, some of them might be imaginary. But the fundamental theorem of algebra tells you the degree is the same as the number of zeros. They don't have to be real zeros, that's why it's at most that many zeros. Okay, and then you also need to know it would have at most the number of relative extrema, which to me, these are like turning points. Extrema is max and mins. So either way, if it's a max, it's changing directions. If it's a min, it's changing directions. So basically, how many times can it change directions? And that is one less than whatever the degree is. Now, I don't know if I have verbalized that with y'all, but that should make sense to you. Because if you think about like x squared, degree is 2, that means it could have at most one turning point. It's got to turn around somewhere. If it's a 4th degree, if it was just x to the 4th, that means it has at most 3 turning points, at most 3 relative extrema. That doesn't mean it has to. X to the 4th only has 1. It means it could have up to 3. If this was x to the 4th, something, 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 it could still only change directions 1, 2, 3 times at the most. So whatever the degree is, one less than that is how many relative maxes and mins you can get, how many times it can turn around. All right, and then for 35, find the remaining factors. If x plus 2 is a factor, x minus 4 is a factor, and it wants us to find the remaining factors. Well, first off, this is a 4th degree, so I know it's going to have 4 zeros and 4 linear factors. So I would just make 2 blanks for that. And here's where you've got options. You can either long divide out x plus 2 from that polynomial to get it down to the 3rd degree, and then you could long divide x minus 4 out of the 3rd degree to get it down to a 2nd degree. And then a quadratic we can always solve with quadratic formula as worst case scenario. Or if you don't want to divide by x plus 2 and x minus 4, you can do synthetic division. Just make sure that you set it up correctly. So if I want to divide out x plus 2, I could divide by negative 2, where that equals 0. The coefficients need to be in order. But the one nice thing, whether you do long division or synthetic division, the fact that you're being told that these are factors guarantees that it divides into it evenly. Guarantees that there should be a remainder of 0. That's nice, because if you're not getting a remainder of 0, you know that you have some kind of mistake somewhere. So, synthetic division, add down and multiply. 8 plus nothing is 8. Multiply this and put it here. Add down is negative 30. Multiply it by negative 2 and put that here. Add down and multiply. Add down and multiply. Add down. And notice that we've got a remainder of 0 like I anticipated. So I started off with the 4th degree, dividing out the x plus 2 this now represents a 3rd degree. 8x cubed minus 30x squared minus 11x plus 12. Now, I also want to divide this one out. You're not going to divide this one out from the original problem, because that's just going to get you back to a 3rd degree. You're going to divide this out of what was remaining from dividing that out. That's going to get it from a 3rd degree down to a 2nd degree. So add and multiply, add and multiply, add and multiply. And again, you should have anticipated another remainder of 0, because that's supposed to divide into it. That's what it means to be a factor, that it can divide evenly into it. Okay, now this represents a quadratic, so many x squareds, and I'm going to try to factor it, but even if it doesn't factor, I know I can at least finish with quadratic formula. So that's what's special about getting it down to a quadratic. If we can get higher order polynomials down to a quadratic, then at least we know we have a plan to solve them. So let's see, this would be 6 minus 4. Okay, yep, that looks like how that's factors. And so here's the other 2 factors. There was a 4x plus 3 divides into it evenly, and a 2x minus 1 divides into it evenly. Now, by the way, I don't know that I would do this on a regular basis, but just like these were factors, so they divided into it evenly, if you had any doubt that you factored this correctly, if you don't trust yourself with factoring, you can take just a second. Well, actually, you can't. I'm sorry, you can't do long division on the or synthetic division on those. But if you were willing to do long division into this, of course, that would take you an extra couple minutes. But you could see that it also has a remainder of 0, and then you could feel better about that being a factor. And then you could divide out. Well, actually, you don't even have to divide out. When you do that, the leftover one would be 2x minus 1. So that would all but confirm that's the last hidden factor. So just something to think about. Synthetic, just because you don't have to use synthetic division sometimes doesn't mean that it couldn't help you out. Okay, so not just knowing synthetic division, long division, not just knowing that there should have been the 2 more factors because it was a 4th degree, but seeing how all of this stuff works together. Taking a 4th degree, dividing out a factor gets it to a 3rd degree, dividing out another factor gets it down to a quadratic, and then we can solve a quadratic like normal. All right, and then 36 and 37 were long division, synthetic division practice. So 36, this one would have to be long division because synthetic division can't divide by things like this. Synthetic division can only work if it's x plus a number or x minus a number or a different variable, but not an x squared. Now, this part is optional, but if you saw that you struggled with long division, you might want to say, well, first you might want to copy the question down, right? You've got 3x cubes, you've got no x squareds. So in synthetic division, you have to put that 0 there. Long division, you don't have to, but it's usually recommended. Most students feel better if they do that. So first part of your answer needs to be the thing times x squared that gives you 3x cubed. So that would be 3x. Also multiply it by 1. Now you probably don't want to line it up here. You don't want to put x's under x squareds. That's just a little bit harder to see. Put the x's under the x's. Okay, and then my advice is to quickly change the signs and add instead. So it looks like this placeholder didn't really help in this question, but it also wasn't very much work. So now I know I'm done with the algorithm because there's nothing times x squared that gives me x without putting an x in the denominator, which we're not interested in. So my answer will be the quotient 3x plus the remainder. Remainder doesn't have to be just a number. Remainder's whatever's left over when you can't do the process anymore. Remainder over the divisor. (3x plus x minus 1 over x squared plus 1). And again, as much as you may enjoy synthetic division, you've got to be able to do long division for problems like this. Synthetic just not going to help you out. Okay, whereas 37 asks you to do this one with synthetic division. But even on the quiz, if we said, show us you could do this in synthetic division, you could also, to the side, do long division if you wanted to make sure that you got the same answer both ways. That's how we practice it on the worksheet. So, synthetic division, where this equals 0 goes in the top left. List off the coefficients in order. I know somebody's going to do this. That is not correct. Synthetic division thinks this is your constant, this is your x's, and these are your x squareds. Everything has a place in synthetic division. So you can start off saying, I've got 2x to the fourths, but then you have to say you have no x to the thirds. Then you have negative 5x squareds, and then you have to say you've got no x's. And then finally a constant of negative 3. If you don't put these placeholders in here, synthetic division will not work out for you. That's part of the setup. Okay, so then add down, multiply, add down, multiply, add down, and multiply, add down, and multiply, add down, just as many times as you can, and then you need to make sense of these numbers. So this was x to the fourth. I divided out an x, so now this represents x to the thirds, x squareds, x's, constant, and the last number is the remainder. Remainder still needs to be put over the divisor. And again, if we asked you to do that on the quiz specifically, you could also force yourself to do long division to see that you get the same answer. So long division always works. Synthetic division has to be in this type of format to work. All right, so again, even though this handout is semester test review, all of this stuff is what's relevant about your quiz next class. So is there anything you want me to clear up about 33 through 37 while we're still at this place?
For 35,
Uh-huh.
could you do like x plus 3/4 instead of 4x plus 3?
Okay, one more time.
Could you do like x plus 3/4 instead of 4x plus 3?
You could, yeah. That's fine. And then over here, instead of 2x minus 1, you could say x minus a half. That would be fine too. Okay, so at least you've got 5 questions from the semester test review done, but with the rest of your class time, which is quite a bit, honestly, I think we may have given you a little too much time in this section, but that's okay, because some of this might be harder for you than other people. But I need you to first make sure that you're prepared for your 2.5 quiz. So again, you've got 3 good handouts for that. 117, long division, synthetic division. 118 is basically like a practice quiz. That's very, very similar looking to what your quiz looks like. So I would definitely look that over again. And then 119 was the book assignment. So any of those questions you struggled with in the book assignment, obviously trying them again before the quiz would be very beneficial if they end up showing up on the quiz. So make sure you're ready for the 2.5 quiz. Make sure you set a reminder about the 2.5 quiz first thing on Tuesday, since that is close to a full week from now. And then if you still have extra time, then feel free to do anything else from this test review. Anything you just want to put a dent in so you don't have to worry about later. I need to go grab some papers real quick.